No one likes the idea of serving their guest a meal that turns out to be a flop. Everyone needs a little help now and then. So, before you head to the kitchen, read up on some tips that will help you cook food that is not only edible, but spectacularly awesome. Follow these tips to impress your guests and improve ordinary family meals as well. To increase the texture and quality of the pasta that you cook at night, make sure that you finish cooking with the pasta in the pan with sauce. This will help to maximize the way that your food tastes during the meal. Cook your smaller foods at very high temperatures and larger foods at lower temperatures for the best results. If you want to cook delicious steaks, use your oven broiler. This will help to absorb the sauce so that it blends in properly and tastes great when you sit down to the table and eat. If you want to cook delicious steaks, use your oven broiler. When you properly heat your oven, the broiler will quickly sear the meat and keep it juicier. You should avoid using any utensil that will puncture the meat when you turn it. That will cause vital fluid loss. Use a spatula instead. A coffee grinder isn't just for coffee. A coffee grinder actually works just as well as a food processor for some jobs. This is especially true with small jobs, when you don't want the trouble of lugging out a huge processor, and then having to wash all the parts. Nuts and peppercorns grind perfectly in a coffee grinder, even sugar if you need a quick substitute for powdered sugar in a recipe. When you broil a steak, heat your broiler to the appropriate temperature before putting the steak in. The result will be a seared steak on the outside, with a very juicy inside. The broiling process should also be quick, but will vary depending on how well done you want your steak to be. Overcooking can lead to a dried out end result. Cooking is all about preparation. To take the edge of cooking, whether it is a small appetizer, simple dish, full 9-course meal, or elegant dessert, prepare for your cooking a day or two ahead. Plan what you are going to make and for how many people you are going to make it for. Gather your ingredients ahead of time to ensure that you won't have to rush. Shelling pecans can be really challenging. Make it easier by soaking them in a cup of water, and put the cup into the microwave for 5 to 6 minutes. It is always possible to soak the pecans into boiling water to get the same effect. Hot water makes the shell softer and easier to crack. Ginger roots can be used for several dishes, so it's worth learning how to store them. For a few days you can just put them in the refrigerator's vegetable drawer. For a much longer storage, freeze the unpeeled ginger root and cut the piece you need while it is frozen. You need to store your flour in a waterproof container. If flour gets wet, it becomes a huge mess and cannot be used for cooking. There are some waterproof containers that can be sealed so that there is no way for water to get into it, which can save you a lot of money in the long run. Sautéing vegetables in a little chicken broth is a healthful way to cook them. The broth will add to the flavor of the vegetables and cut back on the amount of oil that is typically needed to sauté them. This is an easy, delicious way to prepare veggies for your meal. Many liquids are interchangeable within a recipe. Try replacing the water or milk with something new. For instance, you can use broth, stock, juice, or a bit of wine to replace the water in a recipe. Instead of using milk, you can substitute yogurt, buttermilk, or sour cream. Using different liquids is an easy way to make an old dish more interesting and more nutritious. Place fruit that is not quite ripe in a plastic bag with a few small holes to allow it to ripen. The plastic helps retain the gases used by ripening fruit, while the holes allow fresh air to circulate across the fruit. This also helps you keep your fruit fresh longer. If you are making mashed potatoes, return them to the pot after you have drained them. Cover the pot tightly, and then let it steam for about 5 minutes. By doing this, the potatoes are able to dry out, which will make them mash into the perfect texture. It will also soak up butter and cream easier. Try drying your own fresh tomatoes. Simply cut them into 1/2 inch slices, or cut lengthwise for romas. Put them on a rack with the cut side up and add sufficient salt. Set your oven to 190 degrees, place the rack on a baking sheet, and let the tomatoes dry in the oven for approximately 10 hours. You can then freeze your tomatoes in Ziploc bags. Dried tomatoes can be placed into a jar that is filled with fresh herbs and olive oil. This will be good for up to 2 weeks, and should be refrigerated during that time. A well-organized kitchen will simplify cooking. If you are disorganized, you won't know where to find the cheese grater or the spatula when you need them. Keep things that are similar in the same place. For instance, place parsley and basil in one cabinet, since both are spices. Now that you have read these great cooking tips, you can go into the kitchen armed with the knowledge that whatever dish you cook, you will impress your friends, family, and guests the way you want to. So head over to the kitchen and get